What's going on, everybody? Today I'm gonna be breaking down how to carry on tank. Just for some context, I've been a top 500 DPS player for multiple seasons of Marvel Rivals, and I've recently hit Eternity on a tank only account, so I think I have a decent understanding of the role on how to carry on it. But without further ado, let's get into it. So there's really three concepts that I like to use to try to carry on tank and dominate my games. Number one is you gotta know when to take space. You basically take space, when you're having an advantage in the team fight, or you just need to push up in general. But say you get a pick, right? You should be walking up right after you get a pick. You should not be sitting there letting them stabilize after you get a pick. You put on the pressure when you get a pick on tank. And you kind of, you know, when you're down in a team fight, right? You also should just learn how to back up. You gotta understand that when you don't have the advantage, you have to play a little safer. You can't just face tank all the time. You gotta think about, you gotta actually use cover. I know people don't really do that on tank, but you gotta learn to use cover sometimes because you can't always just face tank everything, especially if you're not a shield tank. You don't have a way to mitigate the damage. You gotta use walls and stuff to your advantage. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to carry on tank and stuff. You know, staying alive. The longer you're on point, more likely you're to win, right? That would make sense. At least I think it makes sense. I don't know. Y'all can be the judge if that makes sense or not. But yeah, that's basically tip number one on how to carry. Tip number two, right, is to give your teammates opportunities, right? Say, I'm gonna use Mag for example, right? You see your Bucky ulting, you see your Magic ulting, bubble them in. It makes them that much more likely to be successful on their ult. But vice versa, right? You see the enemy Mag about to rock your cloak or something, or your Luna. If you bubble them, he can't do anything to them. Stuff like that. Now that's just with Mag, right? You can do the same thing with Strange. You block for them. A couple other tanks, you can provide shields or just, peel for them on certain dive tanks, you can peel a little bit. Just understand that, you can do more on tank than just stand there and eat damage. You gotta be more proactive in the team fight. As long as you do that, I promise you will climb. Just gotta lock in a little bit. And yeah, that's basically tip number two. And then my third final tip on how to hard carry really on tank is to play a tank that makes sense for your comp, right? Say you have a dive tank, right? Go dive with them. It just makes it that much more successful. Because I promise you, if you go a split comp and where you're all doing different things, especially in solo queue, it can work, right? If you're just a lot better than the other team, but sometimes it will not work because you just aren't doing the same thing. You get caught out and people just keep feeding. So, I would recommend you have a dive comp, go Venom, go Captain America, stuff like that. Kind of makes more sense. But, on the other hand, right, if a poke comp, you probably should run a shield tank. Or you notice their team has a lot of damage, you should probably run a shield tank. Especially if you're in a solo tank scenario, which if you're solo tanking, you have to play a lot more passive, and I would definitely recommend playing a shield tank if you're solo tanking, because it's going to be rough out there if you're trying to play a dive tank solo tanking, because then you just don't have a front line, your team gets ran over. So just keep that in mind when you're picking your tanks for your matchups, and realizing that certain tanks are just bad into others. I hate, and I know people don't like the counter swap nonsense, but I'm using this example, right? Groot, there's Thing, say you're playing Thing, right? Thing is not good into Groot, right? But you could probably still play him if you just ask your teammate to help you out, which you can't guarantee that every time, so you got to be able to have another character you can swap. I wouldn't recommend one tricking, but if you want to one trick, you can one trick. It's nothing wrong with it, in my opinion, but just understand that sometimes you will just lose because it's the matchup. But yeah, those are basically my three tips on how to carry on tank. If y'all want another video like this for another role or characters in general, just let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate y'all for watching my vids. If this helped you at all, drop a like or a sub as I'm on the journey to 1K subs. So it'd be greatly appreciated. But anyway, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye bye.